until the facts come out, then surely let the show run. I mean, that's my main opinion. I don't really know the ins and outs of the exact case, and none of us do.
A British woman has caught Ebola while working at a treatment centre in Sierra Leone. The military healthcare worker is now expected to be flown back to the UK. A man who became a multi-millionaire years after divorcing his wife could now be forced to give her some of his money. The Supreme Court has ruled Kathleen Wyatt can make a claim against Dale Vince, even though she lodged it more than 25 years after they'd separated. LBC weather, patchy rain for London and the southeast this evening. It'll ease later to leave a mainly cloudy night, lows of 9 Celsius. Clearer skies across Scotland, Northern Ireland and the north of England. Cloudy across southern areas of the UK. Tomorrow, some rain for western parts. Brighter and mild for much of the southeast and highs of 14 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre on the Essex stretch of the M25. There are queues anti-clockwise from junction 28 at the A12 to 27 at the M11, and that was after an accident that happened earlier. In London, there are delays on the A13 eastbound from the Canning Town flyover to the Lodge Avenue junction, and that was after an accident that happened earlier. And also on the A2 in London, very busy eastbound heading towards Eltham, also after an accident earlier. Now, Chelsea are playing at home at Stamford Bridge in the Champions League, taking on Paris Saint-Germain. Kick-off is at 7:45, so the Fulham Road is closed and obviously extra traffic in the area, making things very, very busy. Long delays on the M18 southbound heading towards Junction 1 at Bramley, and that's because a lorry has broken down and one lane is closed for recovery. On the trains, First Great Western services via Hanwell, they're delayed by about half an hour, and that's also meaning there are delays on the Heathrow Connect and Heathrow Express services as well, so if you're heading to the airport, allow yourself extra time. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel
with GoToMeeting. Fast, easy online meetings. Go online for a free 30-day trial.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Dale at Drive. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's 4 minutes past 7 here on LBC. Well, on Monday, we had the Conservative Education Secretary, Nicky Morgan, with us for a phone-in. Yesterday, it was Harriet Harman's turn. Today, we have Chuka Umunna with us for the next hour. And next week, Eric Pickles will be joining us for another hour. So how about that for balance? You have an hour to get your calls in to Chuka Umunna. Lots of people calling in already, actually. 0345 6060 973. He is the Shadow Business Secretary, so do feel free to ask about anything to do with his portfolio. But I suspect there are lots of other election issues that you might want to quiz him on as well. 0345 6060 973. Well, Chuka, welcome again. This is actually the last phone-in we'll be doing before the election campaign proper starts.
Wow.
When we all have to get really serious.
Wow.
And when you don't...
It's been fun. Thanks for having us on.
Well, not at all. We enjoy having you on.
I appreciate it.
Shall we get straight into it? Because there are so many people calling in already. Let's go to Dan in Bromley on line 1. Hello, Dan.
Hello there.
Hi, what would you like to say?
Well, I did call in earlier and spoke, but the point I was making about Clarkson is, well, first off, it's been an altercation and then a fracas, then someone said he punched him, but we don't know which, so okay. But the point I was making is that most of us look at Clarkson the way we looked at, say, Alf Garnett or that type of thing, whereby we know he's being silly and we know that he's playing the fool because, he's kind of playing a bigoted fool. If you know what I mean. He's very good at it.
So what's your question?
To check it. Well, should he be sacked or not? I don't think so.
I should mention, by the way, you can watch us at lbc.co.uk. Chuka, should Jeremy Clarkson be sacked for hitting his producer?
Well, I think that's an issue for the BBC. Do you know what? I really wish we weren't talking about this.
Well,
this is something...
We're dictated by the
Jeremy would love the fact that we're talking about this. I think he's not shy of the publicity at all. He enjoys the publicity. And every time he says an offensive thing or annoys a group of people, it becomes news, which is what he wants. But it's up to the BBC. I think it's a good use of license fee payers' money? I don't, but that's an issue for the BBC.
If you hit your special advisor who's sitting outside listening to us now, if you hit him, would you expect Ed Miliband to sack you?
I think...
Or have you?
I have certainly not hit my special advisors.
I bet there have been times.
I would never hit or strike out against anybody who worked and helped me, and I think it's really quite deplorable. And I think if I was found to have done something like that, I do think that Ed Miliband would be perfectly within his rights to ask for my resignation, not least because as the Shadow Business Secretary, and if I'm lucky enough to be appointed into government as a business secretary, I'd be responsible for things like employment law. And I think you have to set an
basically,
example.
you just think he almost welcomes the publicity that this is generating.
To some extent, I think he thoroughly enjoys it.
Do you watch Top Gear?
I used to.
Petrol head?
A very long time ago. I wouldn't describe myself as a petrol head. I like my cars, but...
What do you drive?
I drive a black Ford Focus.
Do you?
Yes.
That's not very exciting. I don't think Jeremy Clarkson would be very impressed by that.
Well, I didn't really want to spend much more money on it.
Or is it one of these souped-up black Ford Focuses with the sort of ghetto blasters?
Well, it's a second-hand one, and I have to confess, I do have tinted windows
Do you really?
in the back seats, which my family find hilarious.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Let's carry on. Let's move on to something far more serious. Rain is in Chelsea. Hello, Rain.
Hi there, hello. It's good to talk to you. Yes, I just wanted to bring up Nigel Farage has said something about he's not going to do point scoring when he's discussing politics during the election campaign. I think Miliband has just kind of said the same. My whole thing is why spend the whole of the time in opposition with people following this thing of point scoring, which everybody finds really boring and is, I think, just disengaging people.
Who do you think the worst culprits are?
I think Ed Balls is one of them. I think some of the more sort of, I don't want to get into names, actually. It's a bit rude, but they know who they are, and the public know who they are.
Do you think Chuka's one of them?
Sorry?
Do you think Chuka is one of them?
No, actually, he's somebody who comes across sometimes. He's the one person I've heard him on, I think it was Newsnight or something, where he did kind of talk in a very sort of collaborative way with people, and it actually was a conversation. But you can't say the same of people in politics generally. That, people walk into a room and hear politicians talking, and they switch the radio off, switch the TV off.
So that's what about the TV debates? Because they're in a sense going to be all about point scoring, aren't they?
I think it's just going to be dreadful. It's just listening to people ranting on, and you wouldn't do business with people like that. You wouldn't have friends with people who talk like that. It's just a bit of a Punch and Judy show.
All right, well let's put that.
Rain, thank you for your kind comments. Look, I think the problem here is not so much the participants in the way that we do politics, or granted, without reference to any of the people you've mentioned, there are some people who really enjoy the tribalism and the Punch and Judy of politics. But the problem is the institution and the way we do things. And if you look at, for example, Prime Minister's questions, the whole way that is set up is to encourage a ridiculously shrill, adversarial, tribal debate that totally switches people off. And the shame of it is, actually, Rain, is that we have some fantastic debates in the House of Commons about very serious issues, but the focus is always on PMQs. Actually, where I disagree with you, actually, Rain, is that I think one of the good things about the TV debates last time is it really made the leaders focus on the issues. And if you just played the whole Punch and Judy thing, generally, I don't know if you remember, there was like the worm, which was this kind of graphic that the broadcasters used to show the approval or not of the leaders in their different party colours. And whenever anybody enters into that very kind of, he said, she said kind of banter, the worm goes very low. You don't get a good scoring. So I actually think one of the reasons for having the TV debates is frankly because I think PMQs is a circus and should be abolished and replaced with something different.
What?
As I said,
it's all very well to say abolish it, but it does actually hold the Prime Minister to account.
It should be abolished in its current form. I think absolutely you need time in the House of Commons where he is held to account or she is held to account. But the problem is a setup. So, for example, one way you could do it is instead of giving backbenchers one question to the Prime Minister, you could give them 2 or 3, so they actually have to have
would that alter the atmosphere? Isn't the atmosphere the result of the way that the Commons chamber is set up? And,
in part.
But if you look at other... I mean, I've sat in the Australian Parliament looking at what their people...
Yeah.
I mean, they have question time with the Prime Minister every single day that Parliament's sitting, and it's even rowdier than our question time.
Yes.
But you look at the German Bundestag, for example, which is so vanilla. There is no atmosphere.
Yes.
There is no real holding to account.
Sure.
I think we have to be very careful what we wish for.
I agree. But there has got to be another way of doing it other than this. And frankly, to assert that is simply an argument for the status quo. There's got to be a better way of doing this. If you look at when the Prime Minister appears in front of the Liaison Committee, which is a select committee composed of the chairs of all the different standing select committees of the House of Commons, you get decent scrutiny of the Prime Minister on specific issues. And sometimes in the House of Commons, that does happen. But too often, particularly around the way we do Prime Minister's questions, it doesn't happen. That needs to change. But I honestly think the TV debates, one of the reasons for having them is it moves you away from that. See, the Prime Minister would say, look, I have a debate with Ed Miliband every week, but come on, most people think that is a joke because they don't think the institution delivers a decent outcome. And by the way, I mean, I think should say, I think Ed does a superb job every week. It's incredible.
Well, you would say that, wouldn't you?
I would say that, wouldn't I? But actually, if you read all of the memoirs and the commentary from people who've done Prime Minister's questions, both the leaders of the opposition and as Prime Minister, none of them have particularly enjoyed it. None of them have found it particularly satisfying on either side.
Will there be a commitment in the Labour Party manifesto to reform Prime Minister's questions?
Well, Ed has said on record that he's interested in looking at how we do things differently, and he is proposed and intends to do people's question times every week where actually he gives the public the opportunity to ask him direct questions, which I think is a good thing. That's really innovative.
What do you think about this idea from Ed Miliband that there should be a new law, that there have to be TV election debates? I mean, I come from the point of view that I think David Cameron's made a horrendous error by not agreeing to the debate.
Yeah,
so
I've
got no agenda here on David Cameron's behalf. However, it's going over the top to say you need to legislate to bring in laws, isn't it? I mean, isn't that just a sort of knee-jerk reaction?
I don't think it's a knee-jerk reaction. We already have legislation which puts party political broadcast on a statutory footing so that there's a framework to make sure that they happen, but according to fair rules. And that is all that is being proposed in relation to the debates. And there would be a consultation beforehand with the Electoral Commission.
You can't legislate for, say, Sky News to carry out a debate. I mean, you might be able to with the BBC because they're effectively a state broadcaster. But ITV, Channel 5, Channel 4 actually is a public broadcaster. But
yeah, I think the idea is, I mean, at the moment it's, being proposed, exactly how it applies. I don't know all the detail if I'm honest with you, but the thinking is if you can have a framework under which you do party political broadcasts, and frankly, under which, I mean, people will notice over the coming weeks once Parliament is dissolved, Ian's going to be quite restricted in the way that he does things because he's... You.
Me, I am.
Yes,
I'm already restricted.
This Ian is going to be slightly restricted in the way he does things, beyond beyond the restrictions he's already working on.
No, I mean, it is true. In the short election, although it's actually quite a long election campaign from the 30th of March, I mean, we have to be very careful about the minutes that we provide for each party when they come on. So we are obviously abide by that. Well, lots of time to take your calls. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Chuka Umunna is here with me until 8 o'clock. This is LBC. It's 7:15.
M25, the anti-clockwise side, queuing after an accident earlier, just before the M11 at junction 27. The inside lane still shut there. That's why there's such a big queue back towards junction 28 for the A12. Clockwise, you're queuing on the M25 because of a bus which is broken down on the exit slip at junction 31. That's the Arterial Road, West Thurrock. It's in lane 2. That's causing some big queues back onto the main carriageway. Long delays eastbound at Laindon on the Southend Arterial Road. The A127, very long delays there, around 40 to 50 minutes between West Main and Rayleigh Road, not helped by the closure of the A1245. Delays tonight as well on the M11, the northbound side lane shut on the entry slip at junction 8 for Bishop Stortford by a lorry that's broken down. The M4 is going to be shut westbound tonight for overnight roadworks from 10 till 6 a.m, shutting between Maidenhead and Reading at junction 11. Keeping you moving, our next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting, helping smart businesses meet more and travel less.
To the wheelbarrow race winners and the Sunday League smashers, the chainsaw juggling champions and the sword scoffing masters, to the triathletes, the mathletes, to all of our fellow number ones, we say, boom! You did it, and so did we.
O2 has been ranked #1 network for customer service satisfaction by Ofcom for the 6th time in a row. O2, be more dog.
If you're a mummy or a daddy and you smoke in the car, you probably don't know that over 80% of cigarette smoke is invisible. That means that even if you smoke out of the car window, smoke could be blowing back in and dangerous chemicals could still be getting into my lungs. Nasty stuff like carbon monoxide, arsenic and cyanide. If you could see all the poisons in your car, you wouldn't smoke.
Search Smoke Free for free support.
My transit van. It's where I've got everything I need. My sack barrows, spade, hammer and bolster, cement, a level, trowel set and banana skin. Same with new Ford Transit Centres. I know everything I need is there too. They're dedicated, so these guys know Ford vans inside out. Expert advice on choosing the right vehicle. Help with finance, support to keep me on the road. I can count on it all. They're nationwide and open late, so I'm never far from the services I need when I need them. New Ford Transit Centres in a sentence, specialist sales, service and repairs. It's all in.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
Is it just me, or are there more germs in this carriage than passengers? Seriously, a packed doctor's waiting room is a healthier place to be. Too late! Whatever's catching, I've definitely caught it now.
Sick of commuting? Try video meetings using Citrix GoToMeeting from home. Save time, money and your health. Start your free 30-day trial now. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk.
Landlords. Direct Line guaranteed to beat any quote for the same cover. Can your landlord insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Top Gear star Jeremy Clarkson, and now it would seem in a row over food.
Clarky is one of those people that has a brilliant wit, a brilliant turn of phrase.
Jeremy Clarkson is Katie Hopkins on wheels. I'm not surprised she's actually defended him.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7 on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, with over 2,000 hotels worldwide.
I love the way Katie Hopkins there calls Jeremy Clarkson Clarky. I don't think anybody calls Jeremy Clarkson Clarky, but there we go. Right, we have Chuka Umunna with us, Labour's Shadow Business Secretary, taking your calls. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to ask him a question. That's what Andrew in Nottingham is about to do. Hi, Andrew.
Hi there. Good evening, Chuka.
Evening, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, man. I'm good.
Thank you. Can I ask whether or not you agree with the 3 Labour candidates who have just rejected donations from Tony Blair?
Well, I think everybody makes decisions about their own campaign. I'm going to be a candidate at the general election, and if I'd been offered the money by Tony Blair, I would have accepted it. Why? Because I look at all the things that were delivered in my constituency in Streatham under his premiership. 9 Sure Start children's centres, 6 new and improved health centres, record numbers of young people going into higher education, went up by over 80% in my constituency. Thousands of pensioners
we don't need the
in
list.
receipt of pension credit. So he did really good things for my area.
What do you say to these 3 people who... Sally Keeble is one of them. She was elected in 1997 as one of the so-called Blair babes, and yet she seems to have turned against the very man who enabled her to get elected in the first place.
Well, that, Sally will have to answer for herself in that.
And
I say, and by the way, I say that in spite of the fact that, I wasn't a public figure at the time, so, I'm not on record or anything, but I opposed the Iraq War. I disagreed with that decision, but I think that Tony did a huge amount for our country during that time in office.
Do you think that these 3 are grandstanding?
I don't think so. Look, I think each individual makes decisions about the donations that you accept, and I wouldn't be very impressed if somebody started telling me what donations I should and shouldn't accept, which, someone's there above the law in my seat in Streatham, and so I'm not going to tell others. But just in terms of would I accept the money, I would, because of all the good things that I saw happen in my constituency during his premiership.
I'm sure Tony Blair will bear that in mind, possibly if there's a leadership campaign after the next election.
Oh, Ian, for God's sake.
Andrew,
there will be a Labour government, that's what we're working towards.
Andrew, what do you think?
I personally think that it shows that they perhaps feel a bit tainted by Mr Blair's offer of donations, which is why they've chosen to reject them.
So the guy who won them 3 elections, they think that he's an electoral liability. I mean, if they really do think that, they're mad, aren't they?
I don't believe he's an electoral liability at all. I look at all the things. I don't think we do enough to defend our record, frankly, and we need to do more to defend our record. And the kind of narrative...
Well, they clearly don't. They're embarrassed by this record.
The kind of narrative that you hear from opposing parties is that, we drove the car into the ditch, all this nonsense. And all I know is that, looking at my constituency, when we left office, Streatham in 2010 was an immeasurably better place than it was in 1997, with creaking public services, people's aspirations roadblocked by government action.
Right, let's move on. Andrew, thank you for your call. Demiro is in Lewisham. Hello, Demiro.
Hi, Chuka. Hi. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Hi, pleasure to speak to you too.
Thanks. I've got a simple question. Labour often claims to be the party of the minorities. I was just wondering whether you knew how many candidates of BME background Labour has.
Do you know, I'm really sorry, I don't actually have that figure to hand, but we have a number. There's Clive Lewis in Norwich South. There's Sarah Owen in Hastings, who, if she's elected, will become one of the first people of Chinese descent to be elected to the House of Commons. And there are others. But of course, we need to do even better, Demiro, than we are already. I've always been proud that the Labour Party generally, usually tends to have more BME MPs than all the other parties put together. But, fair dues to the Tories. Fair dues to them, because they're... Sorry, go on, Demiro.
My understanding is that there's 37 BME candidates for Labour.
Yeah.
And 47 for Conservatives.
But, Demiro, look, of course, I'd like us to have more than the Conservatives, and it's a good thing, by the way. I think we should celebrate the fact that the Conservatives have BME candidates, and it's good that you're challenging us to do even better. Of course, the key thing is, though, Demiro, is which of those are elected.
Well, there are a lot of them in safe seats.
Yeah, and that is good. That is cause to celebrate, frankly. I'm not going to play party politics with this. I think to have all of our political parties looking like modern Britain, not just in terms of ethnicity, but race, is a thoroughly good thing. And in fact, in terms of the major parties in the House of Commons, the ones who do the worst on this, in some respects, are the Liberal Democrats. Not to mention UKIP, but fair dues, UKIP are 2 MPs so far.
Liberal Democrats don't hold themselves out to be the party of the minorities as much as Labour.
Well, we don't actually. Demiro, can I just say something? We don't do that, because that would tend to suggest that we believe we have some ownership over the support and the votes of our different ethnic minority communities. And let me be absolutely clear for your listeners, Ian, we don't. Nobody owns anybody's support or vote. It has to be earned. And so when I argue, Demiro, to, for example, my African and Caribbean constituents, and I'm part of that community, why they should vote Labour, I don't say it's because, we deserve or somehow we're entitled to your support. I cite all the different things that the Labour Party has done for people of African and Caribbean descent over the years to justify why they should vote for us.
Are you not embarrassed by the fact that the Conservatives have more black and Asian candidates and Chinese candidates? They had selected Alan Mack in Fareham, a safe Conservative seat. I'm not going to go through them all, but are you not embarrassed that the Conservatives have more black and ethnic minority candidates in safe seats than you do?
I don't know the figures.
Well, trust me.
And maybe, actually, I could try and get them through the course of this programme. I'd be quite happy to cite them. But look, I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed, because I'm pleased that across the board we are seeing more people coming through into Parliament. There are currently 27 ethnic minority members of Parliament. When I was growing up, there were 4. And that was one of the reasons why, frankly, if you told the 15, 16-year-old Chuka Umunna that he was going to be an MP, I would have been absolutely flabbergasted.
Me too.
Well, thank you.
Demiro, final word from you.
Well, Chuka, well done for, your hard work. But I can just say, as a young black man myself, I can identify more closely with the core conservative principles, of hard work, strong families, strong local communities. And, my dad owns a small business and a medium size, and I think the Conservatives are doing more work to emphasise these values.
And would you consider in the future, I don't know how old you are, Damir, but would you consider standing yourself in the future?
Of course, 100%.
But Damir, go for it. Look, I don't agree with your analysis, but I respect your view. I'd say all the things you've just cited are values that I identify with. My father was an entrepreneur, and he was an entrepreneur who also loved Harold Wilson, who was a Labour Prime Minister. But look, we need more people like yourself to get involved in politics, my friend. So go for it. And, I'd love you to join the Labour Party and stand for the Labour Party, but if it's another party, go for it.
Damiro, thank you very much. Michael is in Hampshire. Hello, Michael.
Hello there. Hello, Chuka.
Hey.
I'm interested in, given the fact that if you don't gain an overall majority and come the election, I'm interested to know where you would stand with the Trident defence missile system. Now, I know that you have stated that, or Labour have stated that they do not intend to get rid of Trident, but given it's a close call, and given the SNP gain all those seats, 50-odd seats, according to the recent polls, given that 30 to 40% of Labour politicians are against Trident, can you guarantee that Labour will keep Trident?
I can't. I'll just be absolutely straight with you, Michael. I couldn't be part of any cabinet which sought to do away with our nuclear deterrent in the current circumstances. And that is the position of the entire shadow cabinet. We are not a unilateralist party. And I think when we see what is happening around the world with the advent of IS in the Middle East, what is happening vis-a-vis Russia, and also the jihadism we see in parts of Africa, I think to start doing away with our nuclear deterrent would not be the right or the sensible thing.
All those threats?
Well, I could go into detail of that, but I just wanted to answer the second part of the question, which was with respect to the SNP, and make a wider comment, if I may, and I'm happy to come back to that. Look, we've got no plans. We don't feel we need to do any deal with the SNP. I can't say fairer than that. And look, I think one of the problems, this is my wider point, with all this talk about different deals between the parties. I mean, by the way, it's worth stating, the only party which in recent times has done a deal with the SNP are the Conservatives. They did a deal with them in the Holyrood Parliament between 2007 and 11 on a supply confidence basis. They're the only ones who've done the deal with the SNP. But our job is to put forward an offer for a majority government.
Yeah, no, we know that. No, but we heard it from Harriet Harman in detail last night.
But let me tell you, if you let me just finish my sentence, because what I wanted to go on to say is this, is that people are disillusioned enough with politics as it is, without us seemingly doing backroom deals in Westminster, not involving the public. The public must have their say first.
Let me get a word in edgeways here. Well, clearly they do, but you know as well as I do that virtually everybody accepts now there's probably going to be some sort of hung parliament after the next election. Now, in those circumstances, it makes sense for all parties to try and do some wargaming, some contingency planning, in case you don't get a majority.
We have a first past the post voting system that I don't like. I'm an electoral reformer. I think we need to change the way we do politics, and that includes changing our voting system. Now, we don't have a party...
And that's not Labour Party policy.
We don't have a party view on that, because there are different views within the Labour Party on what we do with our electoral system. I voted for and wanted to see the alternative vote adopted when it was put forward earlier in this Parliament at a referendum. I actually think if you have a more proportional voting system, it's more democratic, it's fairer, and it's more representative, and if you like, gives greater expression to the variety of views.
But also guarantees a coalition.
But that's what I was going to say. In those circumstances where you have multi-party politics and an electoral system that gives life to that, in every sense of that word, life to that, then of course you would expect, as they do in other European countries where they have a more proportional system, for the party to set out the terms
the news and travel has beaten us on this, but I would quite like to return to this.
Sure.
If you have a question on this or indeed anything else, Chuka Umunna is here with us till 8:0345 6060 973. Rob on Twitter says, says Chuka Umunna stands out on LBC at the moment because he sounds normal, unlike most politicians. I'm Ian Dale at Drive. LBC News Time, it's 7:31. News headlines with Simon Conway.
The British Heart Foundation says thousands of lives will be saved after MPs voted in favour of introducing plain cigarette packaging. More than 100 Conservative MPs voted against the proposal, which is now expected to come into force next year. A teenage woman from North London has been charged with helping to prepare an act of terrorism. 18-year-old Silan Ocelik from Highbury is due in court tomorrow. The police officer in charge at the Hillsborough disaster has apologised unreservedly to the families of the 96 Liverpool fans who died. David Duckenfield has admitted lying about fans forcing an exit gate open to enter the ground. The business news: there was a slight fall in the UK's industrial output in January compared with the month before. Official figures show it dropped by 0.1%, while manufacturing output slid 0.5%. Excuse me, the euro has fallen to a 12-year low against the US dollar. It's after the European Central Bank began its government bond buying programme. The single currency is worth around $1.05. And ceramic maker Wedgwood has announced it'll create more than 100 jobs. Its estate near Stoke-on-Trent will reopen to the public again in May, following a £34 million redevelopment. And the FTSE 100 closed up 18 points at 67.21. LBC weather: patchy rain for London and the southeast this evening. It'll ease later to leave a mainly cloudy night. Lows of 9 Celsius. Clearer skies across Scotland, Northern Ireland and the north of England. Cloudy across southern areas of the UK. Tomorrow, some rain for western parts. Brighter and mild for much of the southeast. And highs of 14 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
This is Adam Moore in the LBC Travel Centre. Well, still some big queues on the M25 anti-clockwise after an accident just before the M11 at junction 27. The inside lane there is still coned off. A number of emergency vehicles still on scene there, so that's why you're queuing back towards the A12 at Brentwood at junction 28. Clockwise, there's a lane blocked on the exit slip junction 30 for Lakeside and the A13. The breakdown there blocking lane 2 at the start of the exit slip. Embarking the A13 eastbound, Ripple Road slow after an accident at the Lodge Avenue junction. Thornton Heath, Thornton Road southbound, the A23 is partly blocked after an accident at the junction with London Road just by Thornton Heath Pond. Delays later, the M4 westbound's closed overnight for roadworks from junction 89 Maidenhead towards Reading junction 11. Those are starting at 10, going on till 6 tomorrow morning. Keeping you moving. Your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Fast, easy online meetings. Go online for a free 30-day trial.
Whether you're a butcher, baker, bar owner, jeweller, architect, mechanic, cat groomer, IT consultant, malt producer, tree chopper, bespoke dog suit maker, exotic fruit seller, onesie tailor or pig breeder, employers across the UK, however small the business, will soon have to provide a workplace pension, even if you employ just one person. It's the law. Act now and find out when this affects you. Search the Pensions Regulator. Workplace pensions. We're all in. The Pensions Regulator is empowered by the UK Government to regulate workplace pensions.
To the wheelbarrow race winners and the Sunday League smashers, the chainsaw juggling champions and the sword scoffing masters, to the triathletes, the mathletes, to all of our fellow number ones, we say, boom! You did it, and so did we.
O2 has been ranked number 1 network for customer service satisfaction by Ofcom for the 6th time in a row. O2, be more dog.
Landlords, Direct Line guaranteed to beat any quote for the same cover. Can your landlord insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
When it comes to driving in Old Blighty, you do things a little differently. There's not miles of long, straight roads over here, just roundabouts. Roads with barely enough room for a car, let alone the man in a van coming the other way. And of course, the speed bumps. Brilliant, isn't it? That's why the Volvo V40 R design was tuned and tested to tackle those wonderfully British roads. And from just $269 a month with Volvo car leasing, it's even been tuned for the British economy.
3-year personal contract hire agreement with initial rental of £807. Offer ends May 31st, subject to status, mileage and return conditions apply. Visit volvocars.co.uk for more details.
Book a test drive today at your nearest Volvo showroom. The Volvo V40 R design, made in Sweden, tuned for Britain.
The smarter way to manage business expenses. Presented by Concur.
I checked out of my hotel and the bill was automatically added to my expense claim. Then I hopped into a taxi, I took a picture of the receipt using Concur, and there it was, on my expense claim. Then I used my corporate card to buy the client's lunch. Another charge added to my expense claim.
Expenses that write themselves. Just one of the many ways Concur helps manage your company's spend, so you can focus on the big picture. Take a free test drive at tryconcur.co.uk.
Employers across the UK, however small the business, will soon have to provide a workplace pension. It's the law. Act now. Search the Pensions Regulator. Workplace pensions. We're all in.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
7:36, Labour Shadow Business Secretary Chuka Umunna joins us for the last time before the election campaign to take your calls. 0345 6060 973. We were talking about a possible future coalition. We were talking about electoral reform. Simon in Harrow has got a related question. Go ahead, Simon.
Hello, yes, thank you very much, Ian. Hello, Chuka.
Hi.
I just wanted to pick up on your last point. You state that you're in favour of electoral reform.
Yeah, that's my. By the way, that's my personal view. Our party doesn't have a policy on that.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're in favour of a more proportional representation system.
Yeah.
Given that these systems generally result in more horse trading and coalitions. When they're generally applied, these systems on the continent and in other countries. I mean, it seems to me that all your party has ever done is criticise the Lib Dems for going into coalition with the Conservatives. I mean, such a system as PR would just result in a lot of coalition government a lot of the time, and and parties working together. And you seem to, the Labour Party's only done nothing but criticise the Lib Dems for trying to work with the Conservatives by going into coalition. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Either you have single-party government or coalition.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want?
It's a fair question, absolutely. But the issue that we've had with the Liberal Democrats is not the fact of coalition per se, it's the decisions that they've made going into coalition. I mean, to be frank, my biggest beef with Nick Clegg isn't, although I think it was a huge betrayal of young people, the fact that he trebled university tuition fees, having promised not to do so before the general election.
Bearing in mind that your government brought them in the first place.
But we weren't promising to abolish them as he was. But anyway, let me finish.
Hang on,
let me
just
finish
on
the
that.
point.
No, in 1997, Labour in its manifesto promised not to bring in tuition fees, and then you did that
in our second
the 2001
term.
election.
In our second term, that pledge was in relation to the first term only. In relation to the second term, it was a different matter. But the point is actually, my bigger issue with what Nick Clegg did is Nick Clegg changed his position on the core economic policy and the extent to which a deficit reduction strategy should be pursued and the depth of the deficit reduction. And he changed his mind.
And we're reaping the results of that
and
now,
he
are we
did not tell people that he had done that before people went to the ballot box. And I believe there were 16,000 odd people who voted Liberal.
When coalitions are formed. I mean, all parties in a coalition have to jettison some of their best-loved policies.
But that was the issue there. Well, it's one thing jettisoning the odd policy and accepting that you can't have everything that you want.
I know you want a majority
jettisoning your core policy, your core economic policy, and not telling anybody about that. He changed his mind on this, Ian, and didn't tell anybody.
But if there was a Labour-Liberal Democrat coalition after the next election, the Liberal Democrats would have to jettison other policies. I mean, Vince Cable has criticised your new policy on tuition fees, saying it would be the ruination of universities.
But the
is that a red line for them in this election? I don't know.
The difference between Vince and Nick Clegg on that issue is Vince has been very open about what his view is on that now, and that's likely, obviously, to be the same after the general election. Nick Clegg campaigned on a completely different economic policy, changed his mind, didn't tell anyone. So that's why people have the issue with the Liberal Democrats. But the point is, in terms of greater proportionality and a more representative electoral system, is at least you have open coalitions in some sense. If you look at the different political parties, they're very broad churches, so they're closed coalitions. So at least it's in some senses, I think in Europe, they're a bit more of a kind of open model. But I honestly do think we are in a new, probably I think this will be confirmed by general election, that We're in multi-party political system now.
You describe yourself as quite a consensual politician.
Yes.
It seems to me that if you're in favour of electoral reform, you must be very comfortable with the new politics that would come after that, which would mean permanent coalitions. I don't mean permanent Labour-Liberal coalitions. I mean there would be a coalition after every election. You'd be quite happy with that.
Let's just be clear. Under the current system, under this first past the post system, I don't want anything other than a majority Labour government. That's what I want. If we have a different system, then you have a different kind of politics. And I suppose my sense is that we have moved into an era of multi-party politics. And I think, just let me finish this point, that in this new era, the future of the first past the post system we have is going to be subject to more pressure, and it will come under question more. And that's all I'm saying.
Do you not think, though, that in the end, and we'll move on to something else in just a second, do you not think that in the end, what we will get is a new genre of bland politicians, people who are far more... I'm not accusing you of being bland, let me say that right now.
Thank you.
I mean, the Ed Ballses of this world, the Michael Goves of this world are not going to be welcome in coalition politics because they are people who probably rub up their coalition partners in the wrong way. We've seen that already.
Hey, if you look at the additional member system they have in Germany or in other European countries, Sweden, for example, I don't think you would accuse... I certainly wouldn't describe their politicians as being bland. They have a slightly different system in France, so I probably shouldn't use that as an example. But I don't think necessarily because you move away from first past the post, you end up with more bland politics. Actually, what you end up with is a greater variety of views given voice in a political system, which is better for democracy. And in this age where people are very suspicious and disillusioned with not just the economic system, but the political system, we cannot carry on stating the status quo is wonderful and nothing needs to change.
Well, let's go
people
to
want change, in my
the
view.
beautiful town of Skipton in North Yorkshire. Mohammed wants to ask a question. Hi, Mohammed.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question to you, Chuka, as the shadow business secretary, why is it that Labour don't explain the economic benefits of EU migration and instead they converge towards the anti-immigration UKIP rhetoric?
Well, hey, Mohammed, I don't agree with that. I certainly haven't shied away about talking about the benefits.
You got very excited on this programme a couple of months ago, defending it.
And you know, Mohammed, I'm glad you clearly share the view that, frankly, the UKIP offer to this country is a con, which tends to suggest that all of our problems are the fault of Eastern Europeans. And, you know, you and I will have heard similar things said about our parents' generation when they arrived in this country, and we shouldn't have any truck with that kind of narrative. But it is worth saying that I think that people, and I want a firm and fair immigration policy. They want proper controls of who comes in and out. They don't want to see undercutting in the labour market. So we need to ensure we properly enforce our minimum wage, and we don't see people coming here from Europe being exploited. I think that's a bad thing. And actually, our European partners don't disagree with us on that.
How do you get those UKIP voters back who've defected from Labour in the north of England, in some marginal seats, because they don't understand what you've just said. They see people coming into their localities and stealing their jobs.
Often the areas where there is most concern about immigration have the least immigration. In my area, UKIP doesn't enjoy much support at all because we kind of know what they're about. And we've had more immigration than most other constituencies. But, you know, take a constituency that has a UKIP MP, Clacton. Now, Clacton, not a huge amount of immigration there, but what you've got is a situation...
It's a fear, isn't it?
Well, it's partly fear, but it's change, actually, and it's globalisation. And what that's done in Clacton is disrupt traditional industries that had been there for generations, and mostly it was leisure and tourism. There used to be a Butlins there. It's shut. Now, there are other industries that could come in, and to some extent they've got a wind farm off the seafront there, off the coast there, and renewable energy has huge potential. But because there hasn't been the prosecution of proper industrial strategies by the county council there and also government, let's just be honest, over the years, there hasn't been a replacement of those old industries with new ones.
Okay.
And that is, I think, a lot of concern around immigration really is about the economy and how that's impacting on your life and what it says about your job and whether your job is secure and how much you're going to get paid. That's can you get a decent home? Can your kid afford to buy a home around the corner from you? that is the kind of thing that really lies behind it. Those are the issues you've got to tackle.
Right.
And just blaming all of that on Eastern Europeans is an utter con.
We have
utter con in my view.
15 more minutes to go with Chuka Umunna here. Lots of questions coming in. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC. It's 7:45.
This is Adam Moore in the LBC Travel Centre. Well, starting with the trains, the Heathrow Express has delays of up to 40 minutes out of Paddington to Heathrow Airport. That's because of somebody falling ill earlier at Hanwell. That's also affecting First Great Western and the Heathrow Connect service. On the roads, M25 anti-clockwise still looking slow as you approach the M11 at junction 27. The inside lane there is coned off while they deal with an accident from earlier on this evening. Clockwise, M25, there's a lane blocked on the exit slip after a bus broke down, blocking lane 2 at junction 30. For the A13. A little bit slow on Ripple Road, the A13 through Barking as you head eastbound towards the Lodge Avenue junction. Now, a bit later tonight, the M4 westbound side is closing for overnight roadworks. It's shutting from 10 o'clock tonight westbound from Maidenhead, junction 8-9, out towards Reading at junction 11, diversion via the A404M. So closing tonight, 10 o'clock westbound until 6 in the morning. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in half an hour.
LBC Travel.
With GoTo Meeting, helping smart businesses meet more and travel less.
If you feel so self-conscious about your teeth that it stops you smiling in public or eating causes you pain, it could all be different in just a day. I'm Dr. Michael Zibitz, dental specialist at TDC Implant Centre. Our award-winning treatment could give you a full set of beautiful fixed teeth restored in just one day. A quicker, less painful alternative to traditional implants. So see smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Landlords, Direct Line guaranteed to beat any quote for the same cover. Can your landlord insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
The smarter way to manage business expenses. Presented by Concur.
I checked out of my hotel and the bill was automatically added to my expense claim. Then I hopped into a taxi, I took a picture of the receipt using Concur, and there it was, on my expense claim. Then I used my corporate card to buy the client's lunch. Another charge added to my expense claim.
Expenses that write themselves. Just one of the many ways Concur helps manage your company's spend, so you can focus on the big picture. Take a free test drive at tryconcur.co.uk.
My transit van? It's where I've got everything I need. STS drill, twin and earth cable, step ladders and side cutters, test meters and a pot of barbecue sauce. Same with new Ford Transit Centres. I know everything I need is there too. They're dedicated, so these fellas know Ford vans inside out. Expert advice on choosing the right vehicle, help with finance, support to keep me on the road. I can count on it all. They're nationwide and open late, so I'm never far from the services I need when I need them. New Ford Transit Centres in a nutshell: specialist sales, service and repairs. It's all in.
To the wheelbarrow race winners and the Sunday League smashers, the chainsaw juggling champions and the sword scoffing masters, to the triathletes, the mathletes, to all of our fellow number ones, we say, boom! You did it, and so did we.
O2 has been ranked #1 network for customer service satisfaction by Ofcom for the 6th time in a row. O2, be more dog.
Mum! Yes! There are penguins in my room!
Nobody wants to wake up to a chilly home. So if your boiler breaks down, it's good to know that British Gas engineers are only a phone call away. And that 92% of our surveyed home care customers would recommend our services. To find out more, call 0800 009 4747 or search Home Care from British Gas. Conditions apply.
Coming up at 8 on LBC. Beverly Turner.
Stop the press. TV presenter sent home for, allegedly, getting into a scrap at work. This should be a non-story, but tonight 350,000 people have signed a petition in support of Jeremy Clarkson. And in the last hour, the Prime Minister has leapt to his defence. What is it about Petrolhead Clarkson that inspires such devotion?
Leading Britain's conversation. Beverly Turner. This evening from 8 on LBC.
10 to 8. We're on LBC. We're on lbc.co.uk if you want to watch us. Chuka Umunna is here with me until 8. Now, you know, there's something about Labour MPs thinking they're sexy. Ed Balls famously said on this programme that he's a long, slow burn. Get that image out of your mind. And now Chuka Umunna has told a magazine he finds it difficult being so good-looking. Don't we all? So he says he feels awkward about it and that his friends all take the Michael. Well, LBC senior reporter Tom Swarbrick has been getting to the heart of this, asking good-looking people just how hard it is for them.
Did you ever think that maybe there's more to life than being really, really, really ridiculously good-looking?
I'm too sexy for my love, too sexy for my love, love's going to leave me.
I mean, I do what I can, but it's a daily struggle I have to sort of deal with. But I think I do relatively well.
You come through it pretty unscathed.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's terrible. It is hard. This is a picture of Chuka here. What do you make of his looks? Good-looking bloke. Yep, good-looking bloke. You must find it a daily struggle, even to get out of the house, being so good-looking.
She finds it a struggle. She finds it a struggle. She walks down the street, you know, and people, you know, licking their lips everywhere she goes. I mean, it's pretty horrendous.
Well, I can fully appreciate and sympathise with that.
Yeah. Can someone ever be too good-looking for British politics?
Boris Johnson's a wonderful example. You really don't have to be.
What would you say to Chuka as to how to get through this?
As many bodyguards as possible, really. I mean, make crack on. Just make the most of it.
He's too
These
sexy.
Producers.
Do you want to hit the producer? Is that what you're saying?
Look,
how difficult is it being so gorgeously beautiful, Chuka?
Look, for God's sake, I was asked a question. What do I feel when people say a certain, you know, this thing that's being quoted? And I thought, look, I could be really boring and not answer this question, or just give a straight answer to a straight question.
Do you wish you had been boring now?
Yeah, I do, actually. I wish I hadn't answered the bloody question. Excuse my French, God. I wish that I hadn't answered that question. But the bottom line is, look, you know, and to make a serious point, I suppose, if I can, you know, when my constituents come and see me in my surgery, they don't care how I appear or what I look like. All they want to know is that I'm going to represent their interests and try and help them with their problem.
Do you think you're good looking?
No, I'm not even going there. I've already created enough headlines about these things. And look, yes, these producers, I wish I should... do you know what? If I could actually turn this thing around.
You can't.
These people are responsible for that package.
For those of you who are listening rather than watching, he's just turned the camera around. The website guys are not going to be happy. In fact, they may come in and hit you in a minute. I think we should we move on, or would you like to spend the rest of the hour talking about
I think we've done enough. I knew you were going to do this to me.
Well, there you are. You should have been prepared. Andy is in Hampstead. Hello, Andy.
Yeah,
sorry, shall I alter this thing? Sorry, I've messed up
Andy,
this
go
studio.
ahead.
Hi, Andy.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, do you think that putting cigarettes into plain packaging will make a difference?
I do, actually, and there was an independent report carried out by the government that showed that having plain packaging would would have an impact on the uptake of smoking by people. And I think if anything can reduce smoking and reduce the harm that it does, whilst, you know, if people want to smoke, allowing them the choice to do that, then I think we should pursue it. And that's why I supported plain packaging and voted for it earlier. And by the way, I should just say, Andy, I totally get the challenges that this poses for our small businesses. You know, I've met with members of the Association of Convenience Stores who run businesses in my own constituency. We've talked these issues through. This wasn't something I rushed to make a decision on when voting, but I feel on balance, when you're looking at people's health, there's a strong argument for it, and that's why I voted for it.
I mean, I think the research must have been flawed, because, I mean, certainly if you get a bunch of young people who have perhaps already started to smoke, they're already brand loyal. I mean, changing them to white will make absolutely no difference.
Well, apparently the independent, they've done it in Ireland and Australia, and it, as I understand it, has been effective. And the report that was carried out was by, I think, an LSE, a London School of Economics academic, I think. I might have got the university wrong there. And it was an independent report done by a very well-respected professor. And you can only, you know, if you make these kinds of changes, they've got to be evidence-based, and there was a strong evidence base in my view.
What about the fact that it is a legal activity?
Yeah.
If you want to discourage people from smoking, make it illegal. Surely it's the nanny state writ large.
Well, if we went for banning smoking, then I think people could make that argument, but I'm not advocating that. I just don't want us to encourage people, and if there's anything that we can do to discourage people from smoking, then I think fair dues. Let's see what we can do to discourage people
Andy,
from doing
thank
it.
you for that. Let's go to Banty, who's in West Drayton. Hello, Banty.
Hi, Ian. Ian, I'm a big fan. Good evening, Mr. Umunna. This question should be right up your alley. And yes, I agree. It's a daily struggle to be this good-looking. I deal with it every day.
You are not alone.
Anyway.
Oh, gosh, Banty, you see what these people do to me.
This question is for you. It's designed for you. What has Labour got in place to reduce red tape, bureaucracy, and direct or indirect levies, taxes, which have no bearing on earnings or that just make it so hard for little businesses to get
Are you a business owner yourself, Banty?
to survive? Yes, I run a business.
Tell us about you. Could you tell us just a little bit about your business?
The Exchequer takes more money home than all my staff and myself do.
What's the one thing you would like Chuka to do if he becomes business secretary? How could he make your life easier?
Well, firstly, national insurance, employer's contribution. Why? Why should I have to pay any money for employing someone? I pay their wages. They pay national insurance out of those wages. That's something that the government wants a cut from it. I do not like that. Business rates. Surely, a small, tiny little business that rents out a boarded-up shop that had absolutely nothing going on in a dead high street ends up paying business rates, regardless of whether they make anything or not. And then there's all this compliance issues, health and safety, risk assessment.
Okay, well, I said one thing. We've only got a couple of minutes left, Banty. So, how would you respond to that? Because obviously, all businesses want red tape reduced.
Yeah. To go straight to the point, I mean, of the things that you mentioned, Banty, we will cut business rates if we're elected in the coming financial year in 2015-16, and then we'll freeze them in 2016-17. That should save you at least a few £100s, but it depends how it applies in your neck of the woods, so to speak. I have some sympathy. I do have sympathy with what you have said on national insurance, which is why when we have actually been arguing for employers' national insurance to be cut. Particularly where you're employing a young person throughout the course of this Parliament. Finally, the government did it towards the end of this Parliament, which was a good thing. And on regulation, there are a number of things actually we did in government that the government's carried on with. So we set up the Better Regulation Executive to look at how regulation affects businesses. We set up this thing called the Regulatory Policy Committee, which actually looks at the cost of regulation. Again, this government, and doing the right thing, by the way, has carried on with this. And also, I don't know what the nature is of your business, but we set up this thing called the Primary Authority Scheme. So if you have a business, say you run bars in 3 or 4 different boroughs, you can elect one of the boroughs under the Primary Authority Scheme with whom to arrange your compliance, etc. And the other boroughs will abide by that. And the aim there was to make it easier for you. But look, I think it's not just a question, by the way, of the quantity of regulation, but it's also making sure it's good quality. So you don't have to employ an army of accountants and lawyers to tell you what to do. It needs to say what it wants you to do on the tin, so to speak.
Well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the hour. So we will welcome you back during the election campaign.
I look forward to it.
Before. And thank you very much indeed. That's Chuka Umunna, Labour's Shadow Business Secretary. Well, I'm back tomorrow from 4 here on LBC. Coming up at 10, it's Duncan Barks, but in between, it's the lovely Beverly Turner.
Thank you, Ian. This is Bev with you until 10, and at 9 it's the Legal Hour with Neil Russell, who'll be taking your calls about all kinds of family law. But first, I almost can't believe you and I are going to spend an hour talking about a TV presenter who's been sent home for possibly being a bully in the workplace, allegedly. But this story of Clarkson is frankly massive. On the Mail website alone, it's attracted 11,000 comments. 350,000 of you have signed a petition to force the BBC to keep